this conspiracy steps a small group of heroes. Their adventure will take them far to the north and into the heart of the Empire. They will be both captor and foil, embroiled in politics and war, and they alone will save the Empire from its great enemy. They win.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special edition of The Enemy Within, live here on RVTV. How we all doing, everybody? Yes, folks.
The art thing again. Leave me alone.
Never. Anyway, tonight we finished up the campaign. We had our fun. We kicked some ass, took some names, and drank a few beers along the way. But tonight,
Son of a bitch! My alcohol's over there.
Salt in the wound. Salt in the wound.
sorry, dear. Anyway, tonight we're doing something a little different. We're going to have ourselves a little Q&A special. We're going to discuss the events of the campaign, answer your questions, and maybe even drop a few hints to the future of this particular show.
Not me. I'm not sticking around for too long.
Yeah, for those wondering, Maddie actually has a unique opportunity tonight. In about half an hour, he's going to have to head off because he's getting ready for his first randomizer commentary, a Super Mario Bros. 3 randomizer, starting at 10 o'clock.
And for those wondering, yeah, he's the one who got me to do it. I'm like, ooh, Mario 3 tournament. I may watch it. And the more we talked about the intricacies, I'm like, should I call it? I think I should call it.
Wait a minute. So you're gonna
go.
Wait a minute. So you're going to watch people do better at Super Mario than you?
Exactly.
Ouch!
I'm not even. That's not a burn. That's a fact of life, folks. Okay.
So those who can play, those who can't commentate.
Why do you think I do the randomizer commentaries all the time?
No. Here's how it goes,
man.
You're right, but you're not going far enough. Those who can, play. Those who can't, commentate. Those who can't do either, write for Polygon.
Oh! Maddie, give him the Roshi button for that.
Fucking A right, I'm gonna give him the goddamn Roshi button. I can find it.
And I need a sensor for that one.
Now, I'm gonna curse all as I want because I'll have to be PG in an hour.
I don't need a sensu for that one.
There you go.
Yep. I am not nearly as savage as certain Twitter accounts can get, but I do what I can with my bit of subtlety.
Subtlety? Subtlety? You're about as subtle as a sledgehammer, sir.
You're subtle as a landmine.
First off, I'm smart enough to know that you point the claymore. Away from you.
Yes.
There's a reason why there's a spot on the plate that says toward enemy. and secondly, well, I am not as subtle as a sledgehammer. Does it sound like I bury people to you?
No, that's a shovel, not a sledgehammer.
I think he's referring to Triple H.
I know he is. That's why I said that.
Yep. Anyway, it does look like we have a couple questions early on.
Not that I'm. Hold on, let me double check my check.
I see one. It's in the
refresh before bitching.
No, I don't see any. No, though Red Rob does bring up one point. No Hyperforce questions, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fireball asked, "What's your favorite moment from the TRPG?"
Oh yeah, Fireball did ask that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God. Ooh. My personal favorite is when we organized the Flip Gordon incident, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
Of course, it's our escort mission,
mm-hmm.
and I'm like, We needed a way to lull them into a false sense of security. And of course, it was just around that time where the Flip Gordon harmless ribs were getting just in vogue in our joke vernacular.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the gag had to happen.
Yeah. Oh,
Plus the fact that it got pulled off so flippin' well.
All right. Personally, I'd say the moment that I enjoyed the most is twofold. One is being able to do the back and forth with the scene of Aristeo meeting his older brother.
Ooh,
That was fun. And also, and I realize this might be a bit of cheating, but I really liked how you guys handled the first act with the mystery aspect of that.
yeah.
And yes, I do take a bit of pride that a few of you were completely dead wrong when it came to who the Black Cowl was.
I was the only one that knew, and that's only because he told me. But this
Yeah.
was after we thought I was going to be gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh.
I think my favorite part was my little jab at Mildra. The geese.
Mm.
Yeah.
For me, it was actually a combat moment because, you know, I think back to Rite of the Transformation and that moment where I basically just owned that final fight. You know, I did that epic ultimate move, just freaking ultimate damage, even broke records for Mildra. This time it came around and I had the same opportunity to land the killing blow again. But instead, I decided, no, my gun's not going to pierce that crystal. I'm going to do something awesome here, and I'm going to pass this moment off to my friends. Using exploit a weakness to basically let you three get in that ultimate killing blow as a team, I thought just really worked.
Yeah.
You know, great
If
role
we're talking
playing.
about favorite combat moments, though, another one of my favorites, me pulling a Happy Gilmore on a crystal statue. I'm like, I saw the distance. I saw that. Let's pull a Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
Also, one of my favorites was the double whammy I did with Whistler, even though it cost me a little bit of stress.
Hey,
Oh, that's right. I remember that.
It
Yes.
was worth it, though.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there's another question from Dizzy.
Actually, I never got a chance to say nothing.
Yeah, let
yeah.
the lady talk.
Talk.
My apologies.
I think my favorite moment per se. Hello, Fussy Butt.
Actually, that was one of our questions
Come back.
from Slick Rick. What do you think was the best running gag from the campaign? Without a doubt, Lord Fussy Butt. Without a doubt.
Oh, yes,
That's
Yeah.
without
Well,
question.
For a change, I'm glad I wasn't the running gag this time
I
around.
was playing a somewhat
Nope, that fell to John this time.
Kind of a douchey character.
But no,
Yeah,
my
these
favorite
type of
moment
characters.
probably had to have been when
So
I
got
came back
nicknamed
right
Lord
after you
Fussy
guys
Butt.
had
And the joke
been
just
through that.
ran.
nasty ass battle, and all of a sudden, oh hello, Fussy Butt.
Although, if I can give my favorite moment, it's when we were at the end, one of the ends on our mid travels, and the authorities show up, want to know what happened. So, yeah, just give them a head of this game and just show.
I remember.
Oh God!
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was
Head on desk.
Actually-
well, head on a plate.
favorite non-combat moment for me, for my character specifically, was when we were in Altdorf and we were searching. We found out that one of the barrels was in a tavern that we were at, and then I tell the barkeep not to hold on to this because we're gonna be checking this later. End of the night, he sends it back, and the rage that I produced in that scene.
Oh my God!
I was like, I'm gonna fucking kill him.
And I'm the one holding it back.
Yeah.
Like I'm the one talking. Ollie's the one saying, "Shh, go to bed, fussy bed."
Yeah. I remember how like I really got into character in that moment. I loved it. I was really proud of
Yeah,
doing
you did.
Also, a follow up to what Mike said. Head on directly. Apply directly to the town guard.
Yep. Now, Dizzy did ask did ask two questions. One, how many botch counts have we gotten altogether, and are there going to be any monk minis in the future? I'll answer the first one because that's a bit easier. I have not kept track of the botch counter.
We had to
Oh my-
have hit like probably the 30s minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, most of it was from Mike.
Mike Shell, the Peter Sidarso of TRPG.
That's being kind.
I think
that is being kind because you know that there's somebody worse at Hyper RPG.
You know, I think that true. But I think the better joke here is Peter Sidarso is the Mike Shell of Hyper RPG.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Now, as far as whether there's going to be some monk minis in the future, the answer I'm not going to go too much into detail when it comes to that, but the answer is yes.
Come on, you think we're done after this? Give us a break. Come on.
Yeah.
This is only
Slick
one
Rick
part
also
of the
asked,
story.
"What do you think is the best running gag from this campaign?" I think we just answered that.
Yeah, I said that earlier. I said when Lady K brought it up, I was like, yeah, that's the answer to Rick's question right there.
So, the whole John, yours, and Ollie's and Von Brenner. Well, not Von Brenner anymore, but you get the idea.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The repartee we get every once in a while.
Yeah. Always getting called troublemakers. It's like,
Oh, LPH has a question in the Twitch chat.
yeah, he asked Mike Shell's best moments, but I think he already mentioned that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Red Rob's got a good question here. Is there a possible way to create a TRPG, either board or PC?
Yes, actually. Now, the obvious part is that there's plenty of stuff to work with, things like Tabletop Simulator or Roll20, but just creating a TRPG. Red Rob, are you talking from scratch, or are you talking adapting a game that already exists into board or PC?
Yeah, because I was trying to make a TRPG from scratch. I was working on it with Milja, but I just got distracted and forgot about it.
There's a lot that goes into making a TRPG from scratch. You have to know the mechanics you're going to use. You're going to have to know what kind of enemies you want to create, the setting. You know, scripting out, creating a world that people can play with, and making it flexible enough for people to build around it instead of just keeping it a linear game, because that's not the point. You want to make it flexible and open for them to be able to play with instead of just creating this strict game. And he did mean from scratch. So I'm kind of helping with this answer here. But yeah, you have to create something that's not just fun, but flexible for them for people to be creative with it.
Yeah, there's also one of my teachers had said that a given game has to answer 3 questions, and I believe that these 3 questions are important whether it comes to doing video games or tabletop games. Question 1: what is your game about? 2: how does it go about being that? And 3: what behaviors does your game encourage or discourage, or discourage? Let's see. What are the Hairball asked, what are the differences between different systems like Roll20, etc.? Roll20 is not a system per se. It is an emulation. It is. I'd compare it to getting something like ZSNES, because ZSNES isn't a game per se. It's just the means that you use to play games.
It's like an intermediary.
Mm-hmm. And same thing goes with tabletop simulators. They're not games per se; they're just the means to play them. Although I'd say Roll20 is the easiest to get into and is also the cheapest. Like I only have to pay like $10 a month for all the stuff I use for the pro account that I've had for Roll20. Flutter Guy is asking, do you guys have any advice for people just getting into TRPGs like me and DLBot on the Toku Roundup?
Yeah, and Slick Rick was pretty much asking the same question as well.
The advice that I can give is twofold, because one half of the advice is for the GM, and the other half of the advice is for players. When it comes to the GM, an important thing to keep in mind is that as a GM, you are acting as both referee and director, and everything comes down to striking the right balance. And if I can recommend anything, it's be fucking flexible. Sometimes things aren't going to go the way you envisioned it. You do have to do a lot of planning, but it is always good to have a plan B and a plan C for when things don't go according to how you may have scripted it.
Yeah, think about this for a minute, because Mildra has planned the Enemy Within for a while now. But the thing he has to remember is he's dealing with us. We may decide.
I threw, just to jump in here, and I think I threw you for a loop with my decision on my character.
Yeah. Now with Shade's cases, I kind of knew what I was gonna be doing because of how much I liked him doing the smug voice when we ran Anima, and I pitched the idea to you. Would you mind doing that voice again?
I was all for it because it's not that hard to do. It's not like I have to strain myself. It's not like I have to strain myself to pull off this kind of eloquent douche voice.
I like the voice I tried to do in the first session I did. That was a pain in the ass. People sound like.
And my character was pretty simple. It's a fight smart dummy who has some flashes of intelligence. He just acts dumb because, well, he likes it. Plus it gets under it always got under Von Brenner's craw every once in a while.
Yeah. And to be fair, when it came to figuring out how I was going to visualize your character, Maddie, what instantly came to mind was a certain character from Firefly. Our love for him now ain't hard to explain. The hero of Hannah, the man they call Jane. Yeah, I screwed up one word in that, but yeah, Jane is who I came up with because Jane is simple, but he's not an idiot.
Yeah. But getting back to the point I was trying to make earlier, is that even if you have an idea of what we're gonna do, you never know when one of us might decide, you know what, I'm gonna throw a curveball here. I'm gonna do something that you weren't expecting. And you have to be prepared for every contingency. You're not gonna be able to, sometimes you're gonna have to think of stuff on the fly. Because one of us might decide, you may have it. You may figure we're gonna have like this encounter, or do something like this, and we may decide to pull out some trinket or some move that just completely ruins it. In fact, perfect example. If anyone has seen Pro Jared's D&D December series, Mildred, I know you have.
Yes.
There was a reference. He mentioned Pro Jared mentions this story about how he was setting up this campaign where this epic war between two different dwarven clans. And it was going to be this epic war. He had this all big planned out. And one of his players grabs a ballista shot that was fired using a potion of giant strength, fire giant strength to be specific. Grabs a ballista shot, swings it like a bat, clears through the enemy army, gets to the boss, and just freaking throws it at him. And pretty much kills the encounter immediately, ruining an entire plan that Jared had. So as a DM, you have to be prepared for contingencies like that, because you never know what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
Where
On the other hand, if somebody does something, the only time I ever discourage a certain action is when somebody does something blatantly, ridiculously stupid. Mike.
We're like Roddy Piper. As soon as you think you have all the answers, we change the questions.
Or you pull a mic and you go into a stealth mission, guns blazing, blowing shit up. Mike.
Or throw your mad gun shield like Captain America. Yes, I know you're going to make that reference.
Or you try to sleep with the Amazon, Mike.
Keep it in your pants, Varric.
Okay.
It's been in my pants this whole campaign.
Yeah, actually, nobody did the skirt chasing this time around because it wouldn't have really worked.
I couldn't. That's for damn sure.
Is asking what if the enemy within was a JRPG. To be honest, there wouldn't have been much that would have changed. Now, putting aside my hatred for the term JRPG, which I'm not going to get into because that's a whole other can of worms. but everything would have more or less played out the way that it did. Like there's nothing. I wouldn't have had to really change anything in order to make it fit within a JRPG.
Yeah, we didn't do anything that drastic. In fact, that's the one thing about of the history of tabletop games is that a lot of the old school RPGs that we grew up with were inspired by tabletop. It's known history that Lord British invented the Ultima series. He started the Ultima series inspired by his own tabletop adventures. So, really, tabletop is not that much different from any RPG in general. It's just a matter of what you do, what you create with it.
Now, granted, over the decades, the various sides kind of evolved into their own branches, and in some cases, like with say Anima, it ended up going full circle. But Slick Rick also had asked for first timers, what would be your recommendation? It would be very, very tempting for me to recommend D&D, except that is way too easy. In fact, and I've mentioned this before, but I've made it a point to try and avoid doing D&D and doing D&D 5th edition, especially because everybody's fucking doing that.
No, you want simple? I've showed mode of this. Honey Heist. That's simple.
Yeah, if now I'm not entirely. I don't entirely like the notion of going just with simple because of first timer. Because the thing is that when you're starting out for the first time, I would highly recommend looking at the audience that you have. Like what are their kind of likes? How much do they like delving into mechanics? Because even if you don't ask, it's very clear with somebody if somebody is one of the big four. Because there's a concept called GNS theory that has the notion that there are four types of play: gamist, narrativist, simulationist, and the last one. Unfortunately, I can't recall at the moment. I'll have to look that up because I haven't looked at GNS theory in at least a decade. But the point is that it's very easy to tell what somebody's going to prefer based on how they talk and how they express it. So it's best to look around for what kind of games will fit that. And sometimes it might not be D&D. Sometimes it might be something superhero related, like 4C or Marvel Heroic. Sometimes it might be you might do something akin to weird fantasy, like what we did with Numenera.
Just to pop it real quick, Meryl, you mean like gamist, narrativist, and simulationists?
Yes, I distinctly recall that there was a fourth one, but I can't recall.
I'm looking. Actually, I'm doing some research on this right now, and there's only the 3 that I see.
All right. Let's see what else do we. Let's see. Slick Rick also asked, would it be possible for the next campaign to go into the sci-fi part of fantasy, something similar to Halo or Borderlands, or do any of this kind exist? There's plenty of that kind.
I thought that was Numenera.
Yeah.
Numenera, I would consider weird science fiction. With a bit pulpy. I think what he's asking for is something a bit more space opera. That's certainly a possibility. LPH, there are several wrestling tabletop games. I have a handful of them. One of them used the D20 system, which I have, but I can't really recommend. I think there's a few that are free. But if you're going to be doing a wrestling tabletop game, expect it to be a bit complex.
Yeah. Think of all the booking decisions and then act D&D to it, and yeah, it's going to get complicated.
Well,
Yeah.
not just with booking decisions. Just think of how much work you have to put into when it comes to creating your moveset in a WWE 2K game. And just go now. Imagine all the movesets that you have in that.
Also, Sagittarius 44, thank you for the Twitch follow. Welcome to the madness.
Mm-hmm. Airball? No.
I need to pull out the book.
I will never be Kevin Dunn.
Airball, do you want to be Daved?
Here, I'll save you folks the trouble. Hairball, Dave.
Thank you.
You definitely deserve that. If anything, I would be Paul Heyman.
Damn Skippy.
ECW era Paul Heyman, not glorified mouthpiece Paul Heyman.
The glorified mouthpiece Paul Heyman's still pretty fucking good.
Yeah, but I ain't a one-trick pony. As far as doing a wrestling RPG, that would be a tempting idea, but in order to really make it work, I would effectively have to have everybody roll multiple characters.
That's something you do for like a large group of people, not something for just a simple group of five players.
Well, I did one as a play by email called Great Lakes Championship Wrestling. But the thing is with that, we had 3 people who were acting as the quote unquote bookers. We were using Wild World Wrestling, which is actually pretty good and pretty cheap. And we had like 30 people.
I'll be right back.
Would bring in their own because the rule that we had was that you had to have one of each. You had to have one male or female wrestler and one manager or non-wrestling individual, whether it be a manager or a valet or something like that. And you had to be willing to alternate. Well, there are a few good wrestling RPGs, but given the scope and the flow of the weekly TRPGs done here, I am hesitant to do it. Maybe as a one-off, as if we're doing a pay-per-view. Of course, the other problem is that I don't have access to the old Reviewtopia Extreme Wrestling footage, so I can't use that as a base.
I've got some of the old clips, but I've only got like the first couple of episodes when we had the shitty quality streams.
Mm-hmm.
No, I actually have a question. When Lady K's character was doing her sight thing in the castle, I think, what did she see? She never exactly told us.
I think what Bio is asking, what did she see in Bear Faust's office?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
What she saw was Schlaf. It's the implication was that Bearfaust was keeping the Emperor sick.
So it's like a poison.
It's one that strikes a careful balance where it's strong enough to keep the Emperor from being able to move about, but weak enough not to kill him.
All right, Hairball's got a question here. Thoughts on the role for SBOD bit we did? That was up there with one of our top moments from this campaign, without a doubt. That was brilliant. Just integrating one of our own gimmicks into the campaign and making it work.
Yeah, that was a sight. Wait, so an LPH saying, so Maddie J is Roman Reigns? Absolutely not.
Oh, Maddie, you want to field that one before you have to go?
What was the question?
No. LPH is saying that if we did a wrestling tabletop, you'd be Roman Reigns.
Moment, please.
Uh-oh. Here we go. Hit the deck.
I'm gonna pretend you did not.
Hold on, dude.
I'm gonna pretend you did not say that.
Yeah, actually, thank you for the second one, considering that LPH just compared me and Lady K to John Cena and Nikki Bella.
Oh, Lord.
I'll give you a third one.
I'm gonna pretend you did not say that.
Yeah, actually, my sister Shiori over here gave us a better comparison. Screw John Cena and Nikki Bella. We're Edge and Lita.
Barrier.
Which means I would be the rated R superstar.
But do you have a Durango and a Mambo number 5?
Actually, I'm not going to do the full thing again, but no, instead of being the rated R superstar, I'd be the rated RVT superstar.
You know what? I think... Shades, I think I'm going to save that for later.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to use that.
Oh, dude. Vaya, if you're going to do it, you gotta have the enthusiasm.
You gotta do it right, yeah.
Hey, I like that. Hey, I like that. I'm going to use that, Johnny.
Let's see. Kyoryu is saying we need a Los Tiburon RPG. That will never happen. Los Tiburon was a one-off. Was a one-off when I was way too drunk years ago.
Hey, who? Whatcha?
Los Tiburon, the shark of the land. Okay, short version. Be me. Play a monk. Half orc. Don't feel like doing any of that kung fu fighting shit, so I decided to pick feats on grappling. So I grapple everything. Every fucking thing. Including, but not limited to, a bear. Holy shit, Black Dragon. Dragon keeps popping out of the swamp using breath weapon, then popping back in like a prick. So I say, fuck it, I'm charging this guy. I go in, do a dramatic pose in midair while shouting about the honor of the mask, and grapple him. And then I realize something. Oh shit, dragons can fly. He flies up in the air. I am miles above the air. And I and I'm starting to lose hit points because of the altitude. So thinking, well, I either do something or I die. I say, I rolled a pin. The entire table goes silent. I roll the die. It is the roll of destiny. Natural fucking 20.
Yes.
I pin the dragon's wings behind its back, lean back, and German suplex a fucking dragon.
In the middle of the air.
Yes.
When I first read it, it looks like he misspelled Toblerone. I'm not gonna
Nope.
lie.
Nope. Oh, by the way, Maddie,
So-
you might want to go ahead and get going. You got a commentary to prep for.
I know, but I'm waiting for confirmation and to go into the thing first. But
There's a setup for it. There's a setup room. You need to get setting up. Trust me, I know how this works.
all right. Well, before we do anything else, so you're telling me that before dying, you took a dragon to Suplex City?
Yeah. Except I didn't die. I was at -4 hit points after the thing landed. The dragon broke his friggin' neck. And I landed -4 hit points. The cleric stabilizes me. The paladin, who was a warforged, bangs his sword on his shield 3 times and says, "The winner of the match, Los Tiburon, the shark of the land." And that is the story of how I made it to level 6.
And that is how you become a man.
A GTA themed RPG. Honestly, the whole thing with that is it'd basically just be a modern non-fantastic RPG. There's nothing specific to GTA that would require its own gig, especially since every single
Sorry
one
about
of the
that,
games.
gents. I'm back.
Welcome back. Especially since every single one of the GTA games, both in the 2D and 3D era, each have their own different feel to a certain city, whether it be an actual city or a fictional one.
It reminds
Also-
me of that. It reminds me of that RPG for gangster thing Mike posted that one time.
Yeah, that was fun. That was funny, but to be honest, there's not really much in the way of a GTA RPG because you could just use any contemporary style. You can just use any contemporary style like Haven or Hollow Point, and you're pretty much set. I mean, that was the reason why, because I've made it clear that I'm hesitant on using adapted RPGs for that kind of reason. I know that Hyper RPG likes to do that during their hyperdrives, but I don't treat any game system that I have as a one size fits all kind of thing.
Anyway, I'm gonna head out. So see you on the recap, everybody.
Later, Maddie.
Yep.
Good night.
I'm sorry, I still got that image of Milda's character suplexing a fucking dragon.
I know it's gonna be in my head all night. That is awesome. Good night, everybody.
Well, to be fair, it's not the
Wait.
first.
You missed the story of how Mildred had a Lucha Libre character and suplexed a fucking dragon.
In midair.
Mm-hmm. That was the case of the dice gods being on my side, because if I did anything less than a crit, and I would have screwed it up. Which is saying something, because that was back in 3.0, and well, monks in 3rd edition kind of suck.
Yeah, that is very true.
I mean, they're the brilliant gamesologist puts them at a tier 4 class, where their tier 4s are capable of doing one thing, but not necessarily as well as others.
All right, we did have a question from Dizzy over here. Have any of you had any embarrassing moments? Looks over at Mike.
Oh, I did. I did.
Well, I know that we. Well, let's get the obvious out of the way. We know that Mike has had a few because I refuse to let any of them go.
I had one on the way to Altdorf talking to that dwarf.
Yeah, and I think some of my bigger botches could be considered as such, especially the moments when I screw up somebody's name.
Yeah.
But in my defense, that's gonna happen when you have a dozen or so NPC names to remember in your head.
Yeah, we'll rib you a little bit, but we won't hold that against you.
Yep.
Go ahead.
LPH is asking a football tabletop.
What would you do with that?
I'd say screw. Well, I wouldn't do an RPG. I'd just say let's just play Blood Bowl and then done.
Yeah, if you're gonna do anything football related, you got to add a twist to it, like something like Mutant League football, maybe.
That's what. Well, you have to keep in mind, Blood Bowl is basically Games Workshop taking the piss out of the NFL by mixing it with Warhammer.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so basically what I was just saying. So yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the worst moments I've had in game is my shitty fucking agility. My I load the worst agility out of any of us.
Yeah, it happens. Also, something I just thought about that I didn't think about until just now. You gave us a horse like halfway through the campaign, but yet kept putting us in situations where that horse was never going to be useful.
Yeah, part of the problem was that a lot of the campaigns were going to be enclosed areas, and the rules for doing chases were kind of spotty. And I didn't want to have a repeat of what happened with Ryder, where I had to house rule half of the chase rules out of the gate.
Yeah.
It would have been funny as hell to have Arsteo tell Clothilde, shut up, woman, get on my horse.
I will now. This is something that I've been kicking around for a bit of a while, so I may as well mention it. I've been considering the notion of as a bit of an on again off again mini of using Ninth Age, which is basically Warhammer Fantasy Battle after Games Workshop decided to shit the bed because fuck the end times. And I'd considered transferring some of the characters that you've made onto that war game, because well, a mini war game is something that we haven't done yet.
I be down.
Yeah. And fortunately, even though there's a fair bit of army books, as one might expect, Ninth Age is completely open source. It was basically made by fans who did not like how, with the end times, they're effectively killing off the Warhammer Fantasy Battle line and trying to replace it with Age of Sigmar, which is not popular. And a lot of people blame Matt Ward for it, which is why I kept saying "fuck Matt Ward" every week.
And now you learned the reference, folks. The more you know.
Well, I'm not going to go into the full details, but Matt Ward is is comparable to Rob Liefeld in terms of how much fans hate him.
Ooh.
Ouch.
He is referred to on multiple occasions as the fifth Chaos God.
Damn.
And Warhammer 40,000 players especially hate him for some of the changes that he put forward, namely turning the Ultramarines into Mary Sues. He is the reason why everybody hates the Blue Smurfs.
No.
The worst thing that he did with fantasy was fuck up the Dark Elves. which, although that provides an excellent segue, because I would like to get everyone's thoughts on how they felt about Warhammer 3rd Edition to play, because
I loved it.
this is because Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 3rd Edition is a fairly controversial entry, and a lot of people accuse it of turning Warhammer into a board game. The fact that it was developed by Fantasy Flight Games, who's known for their board game stuff, does not help matters.
Honestly, I thought it was a great balance. I mean, it was simple enough that everything was easy to understand, and yet it allowed a lot of creativity and a lot of fun. I don't see where all the controversy is coming from, honestly.
Yeah.
I'd say it has to do with the cards and stuff that were in the starter kit. Although to be quite honest, the whole they turned an RPG into a board game, it very much reminds me of the claim that they turned D&D 4th edition into an MMO, which I already debunked that claim on my own channel.
And as somebody who's actually played a little bit of 4th edition, I can wholeheartedly disagree.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I intend to go into this in further detail later on, but I'd say that if any game felt too much like an MMO, probably 5th.
Yeah.
Oh, honey, have you played 5th?
I have.
I have friends at work that play 5th.
Ah, fair enough. And Shiori back here has played 5th.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, I did rail on 5th edition when it initially came out, but that was a couple of years ago, and there were some things that I did not touch on. I think, by the way, Bio, thanks for the note. I will cross him off the list.
Thank you. Actually, Crimson had a question in Twitch chat.
Yeah, what botches throughout the Enemy Within were your guys' favorite?
Any of Mike's.
Mine was the last part of the campaign when I got full carried. The blood.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the blood.
Well, remind me, which one of you ended up not getting out of the way when you were dealing with the Lord of Change?
That was me again.
I think
agility.
I think the lesson that was learned from that is I have to be very careful the next time if ever I have load bearing villains.
Or I should just have Piccolo yelling at me, "Dodge!"
Yeah, or learn to jump good.
Yeah. Hey, Bio, I think we found out what your new favorite car company is going to be now.
Problem is, the character for this next campaign, which I'm not giving away, can't jump.
Speaking of, I need to talk to the monk later after I get back home.
Yeah. That definitely needs to happen. Let's see. And he mentioned, and Rick also mentioned that if we did a wrestling RPG, it'd be something similar to Mucha Lucha. Don't sell me all that short. There's a lot of variety in wrestling, and I don't necessarily have to take that route. If I'd be taking notes from anything wrestling related for that kind of thing, it'd probably be Lucha Underground.
Yes, that okay. So long as it ain't Los Luchadores.
No. Nope. We will not have a lowrider coming out and shooting missiles out of the front of itself.
Or an enemy who is a talking chihuahua.
God, no.
Although which is worse, a talking Chihuahua or a talking bean?
How about a jalapeno on a stick?
No,
Jalapeno
on
on
a
the-
steak.
Jalapeno on a stick. That's just a day at the state fair.
Yeah.
They put everything on steaks.
That fucker up deep fried, and you got some good Texas eats.
I ain't eating it because I don't do spicy.
Too sweet, me, Mildra.
Too sweet. And the closest thing I'll do to spicy is having the pad thai that I had at work. That's as close as I can get, and that's because I have a massive weakness for noodles.
Any other questions from our chat?
Yeah.
Seems relatively quiet.
What you got?
Yeah.
I'm keeping an eye out, though.
Mm-hmm.
Shuri actually has a question for us. Favorite mission that we did?
Ooh.
The escort mission, just because of how Whistler and you fucked with them before we kicked their ass.
Oh, that was beautiful. Yes. The escort mission. Oh, it's very rare that an escort mission could be that much fun.
Well, I figured when I remember when I was going through the notes and I realized, oh fuck, we're doing an escort mission. How can I make this work?
How can you make this not
Because
suck?
if I had outright said that we're doing if I had outright said a few weeks beforehand that we're doing an escort mission, you would have killed me.
Because nobody in their right mind likes escort missions.
Depends on the type of escort.
Bounce it. Wow.
One phrasing. Two, no.
Meow.
Name me one gamer who has enjoyed an escort mission, and I will show you a.
I reiterate, depends on the type of escort.
And again, meow.
This is an M-rated game, not AO.
We're not going full hot coffee here.
That doesn't count. That was a mod.
Actually,
Don't
no, that
care.
was something. No, the mod was only to unlock it. That was in the game.
Oh, touche. Oh yeah, it was. It was still a giant nothing burger. But I'm getting ahead of myself.
Back on topic. But yeah, I love the fact that me and Maddie were like, you know what? We don't just have to outright fight these guys. Let's fuck them a little bit. That's sad, man.
You all right there?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just laughing. That's
And I tried to intimidate one with very little success.
and we're just like, God damn it! Just let us do this.
Mm-hmm. But
Oh, this is one of those ones I wasn't present for.
yeah, I'd say that one that I very much enjoyed how it played out was probably the Middenheim arc as a whole, especially when it came to first off, I enjoyed the reunion. I enjoyed now the whole thing of Oppenheimer being absent-mindedly sexist. That was my idea because I had this because it kind of had this notion that Oppenheimer is very good at communicating his theories and not very good at communicating anything else.
Oh, so he was the Sheldon Cooper of Warhammer.
No, because I refuse to acknowledge anything about Big Bang Theory. Fuck that shit.
Oh,
Nope, not gonna even tell her. Not even gonna tell her. She's already mad at you about Korra.
Tell her to get to the back of the line. there's a long list of people who've got beef with me because of my hatred for Big Bang Theory. And to be fair, it's probably because it was introduced to me as a show that represents how geeks are. To which I said, first off, I should smack you. Second off, I should tie you down and make you watch the IT Crowd. Third off, I should smack you again sheerly out of principle.
And then I should smack you just because I feel like it.
Yeah. Can you tell Mildred's a passionate individual?
No, not at all.
Really? What was your first clue?
I'm a little bit pissed that the universe must really like pissing me off because of that whole announcement of how can we make this worse? Oh, I know. Let's give the most annoying character in the entire show his own show.
Yeah, where we see his life as a kid.
Yeah.
Yes, that way we find out how damaged he became as a person.
Unless it involves him getting Heath Slatered every week, no. I have enough pain to deal with on a weekly basis, especially since I have to deal with a new dad joke every day. At work, not at home.
I know I'm bad, and I ain't that bad.
No.
Red Rob had a question.
Yeah. Do you think missions on TRPGs are annoying? No.
No.
Because for starters, what could be considered a mission is just the hook for a campaign adventure. Like there can be ways to make it annoying, but that usually comes down to the GM. Sometimes it comes down to poorly worded missions or campaigns, like the vastly overrated Tomb of Horrors.
Yeah, I've seen that one shot played through. Yeah, that's a clusterfuck. If you want to see some real annoyance, look at the way it was in older editions. It was worse.
Oh Lord.
Because some of the old AD&D modules are very hit or miss. Not everybody is going to be as good as White Plume Mountain or Ravenloft.
Yeah, I've heard about Ravenloft too.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, to the surprise of no one, I was not fond of Curse of Strahd.
And of course, us non-tabletop gurus out here are just going, meow.
Yeah.
Well, Curse of Strahd. Here's the thing: Ravenloft, which is the game that take that is the game that I am playing in alongside my buddies Nurgle and Warlord Routes on Fridays on his channel.
Cheap plug.
Yeah, cheap plug. But Ravenloft is very much gothic horror, and to that extent, the 5th edition version has the notion of having Strahd be a killable dragon, and that does not sit well with me.
And Tomb of Horrors, as they say, is a character grinder.
Yeah, that's why I consider it overrated. But I will give credit. I have yet to see anybody make the one comparison that everybody in video gaming hates when journalists make the comparison. Because you've probably heard this at least once. That something is the Dark Souls of something.
I shared a comic about that with you earlier. I tagged you and Shades in a comic of that earlier.
Yeah, I have. There are some times when that thing is somewhat applicable, but it's overused to shit. Usually by people who clearly can't play video games. You know, like that one guy from VentureBeat. And because you managed to endure it even though you died 25 times, Shades, you are a better gamer than a game journalist.
My God, that's a compliment.
I will take it, yes. For those who are wondering what he's talking about, he's talking about my attempt at playing Cuphead.
While a few of us sat there,
You have to light it
talked,
on
and
fire
laughed at
first.
him.
Now, welcome to the torch, and then hit...
To be fair, in all fairness though, I think my death count was 628 throughout the whole game.
At least Shades had the wherewithal to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew what I had enough. My anxiety gets a little built up. It's the same thing. The reason why I didn't get too far into Five Nights at Freddy's. I knew when I was getting too worked up, and I was like, "No, I'm done."
And I'm gonna piss some people off when I say this, but for a horror game, I find Five Nights at Freddy's to be very, very, and this is strictly from a gameplay perspective, I find it to be overrated.
It is. The gameplay is very basic. The fun, quote unquote, of the game comes from, of course, the anticipation of the jump scares, and for those like MatPat out there, the very deep lore that's hidden within it.
I will grant the lore factor, but at the same time, the problem that I have is the fact that I'm not a big fan of that sort of forced trial and error style of gameplay. It's also the reason you're not going to see me play a lot of Nintendo hard games these days, simply because, well, a lot of it was pure trial and error, and quite honestly, it's not fun, and it's especially not fun when it's like playing Five Nights at Freddy's for me is like being made to do a math quiz where you have to get the whole thing right, otherwise you're getting an F.
Yeah, no, I agree wholeheartedly. Honestly, the only reason for its true success was that it came out at the peak of YouTube's gaming success, when YouTube gaming channels were at their peak. So it just happened to be at the right place where guys like PewDiePie, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye were able to do those videos and just draw so much attention to it. It was just right place, right time. But moving on from there, we did get a question from Kiryu Crimson. Is there a TRPG you could convert to allow for a Shadow of the Colossus type boss?
I think doing that comes less down to the rule set itself, and more to map making.
Yeah.
That said, I do think that there are some games that work for it better than others. If you're going to be doing Shadow of the Colossus type bosses, I would be more willing to recommend games that are designed to be larger than life. Two examples I can think of off the top of my head are Godbound, which kind of has a free version, and Exalted Second Edition. Because if you're going to use stuff of that scale, you need a set of mechanics that encourages it without miring it. But you could just as easily do it with even D&D. But it comes down to your use of maps, because if you're doing something that big, you can't have that as like a mini.
No.
Especially if you're trying to emulate Shadow of the Colossus, you need to have that as a static map, because the key metagame when it comes to Shadow of the Colossus is getting on the thing and staying on the thing to find its weak point.
Yeah, you'd be having a lot of endurance or strength checks, a lot of agility checks to climb up the Colossus. And of course, you'd only have a couple of attack rolls, really, once you get to the weak point.
Yeah, so a lot of... And you don't... I'm hesitant to bring in some versions of D&D as an example because it doesn't come down to the combat system per se, but how it handles skill challenges, which is something that was introduced in 4th edition. Because that's what it is ultimately going to come down to. And I think the way to make it interesting is is possibly by, instead of using strength as a modifier, have it as a pool that you can bid with to give yourself advantages.
Yeah, I can see that. You know, having a couple of boosts to climb further up the Colossus, or to stay on that little longer when the Colossus decides to try to swing you off, have a better chance of hanging on, stuff like that.
Yeah, because if you're just using the straight combat rules, it's just going to be a series of contested rolls, and while that's feasible, it's not fun.
Yeah, that sounds boring. Just imagining that myself. And this is coming from a guy who's not as adept to TRPGs as you are. So if I can see that, I can imagine someone like you probably could see that easily.
Yeah, in part because I've done that. Except I didn't use a Colossus per se. I used a Draco Lich. And the core idea was that they weren't trying to climb on it to attack a weak point, but more of trying to drag the fucking thing down. Well, drag the fucking thing down long enough so that they could find a way to actually kill it. Because Shades, you should know as well as anyone, you can't just blow up the body of a lich and expect that to be the end of it.
Nope.
Nope. You have to find the phylactery, or in the case of Modica Magica, you have a soul gem.
Yeah, good analogy.
Well, Chuck. First off, Chuck beat me to it, and second off, it's pretty much the case. They are not zombies; they're liches. They just don't look as ugly as one.
Yeah, the one thing I've been noticing about a lot of these questions is that a lot of you guys are basing your questions on adapted works because that's what you know. But one thing I want to say is one of the things that we've been trying to introduce to you guys through these streams is that you can create your own stories using the given materials. You don't have to do something based on anything else. You know, we could do a Digimon RPG or a wrestling RPG, or
I would love to do Digimon RPG.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is that we can do something similar to that without having to go full on using those kind of RPGs. You know, you mentioned GTA RPGs earlier. No, a Halo, Borderlands.
I want to do Ni no Kuni.
Oh, god damn it.
You knew that was going to happen.
The one thing that even with the adapted ones, one thing that I especially would want to make clear, building on that, is to not use even with utilizing the source material, to not utilize it slavishly. Like, if you're using, since I covered it last week. Actually, no, it was 2 weeks ago. Last week I covered Heavy Gear. Since I covered Pokemon 2 weeks ago, I may as well bring that up because on my personal blog I have a thing called Freebie Friday, where I try and highlight a free RPG that you can grab. 2 weeks ago it was Pokemon Tabletop United, which I consider the definitive RPG if somebody wants to do that. But one thing that was brought up with some of its expansions, 2 of them specifically, which were what was the notion of utilizing the core ideas and concepts of the source material, but hacking them into other genres. For those who don't know terminology, a hack is basically the equivalent of a total conversion mod. You're taking a set of rules or the like, and you're moving it onto a different system or even a different genre. With Pokemon Tabletop United, there were 2 expansions that touched on this. The first is Game of Throws. I probably mispronounced it. I think it was like TROHS. And the whole focus of it is taking the concepts of Pokemon and putting it in a straight fantasy setting, whether it be Asian fantasy, high, low, sword and sorcery, etc. Because Tabletop United has rules for leveling up as both a trainer and for the Pokemon itself. The other one, which has probably the greatest title you could ask for, is Do Porygons Dream of Mareep?
What?
It's a play on the Blade Runner origin. Do robots dream of electric sheep?
Yep.
All right, we actually do have a good question from LPH here in the chat. What do you consider the best original tabletop game?
That's kind of tricky because of the fact that you have so many games that are all doing different styles. It's very much a case because of that. It has to be a little bit more specific, like what type of genre, how complex or not complex. Like for example, if somebody was to run a mech RPG, say Gundam or Macross, not Robotech. Fuck you, Harmony Gold. The game that I would recommend is Mechton Zeta. Simply because of the fact that you have a good deal of customization for both your pilot and for your mecha. I'd also recommend Giant Guardian Generation if you want a free one that can be just as customizable. If you're doing say wrestling, Squared Circle is a fairly good case. If you want to do Gestalt fantasy, the stuff that a lot of people think of when they hear the term JRPG, 8-Bit Adventures is pretty good, and there's also the myriad of Final Fantasy TRPGs that can work pretty well. If you want something with a little more production value, I'd recommend looking at Anima. If you're looking to do space opera, Traveler has been the definitive RPG for that genre for about 20 years. And it goes on. The point is that given the breadth of options that are available, just from the free stuff and the fan-made stuff, there's way too much there to point at one to say this is the best. Even if there's cases like Universal style games that are designed to run everything, when it comes to those games, you can't treat them as a game, but instead you have to treat them like a source code, like you're getting Unity or Unreal. If that makes any bit of sense.
I see what you're getting at.
Yeah.
And Kyoryu, I should note that not too long ago I was pointed in the direction of a Digimon RPG that uses the D20 system called Digital Encounters. But Digital Adventure is pretty decent. It's just that I didn't like that I had to effectively make a character sheet by myself because the one that was there was inadequate. And I'm not very good with Illustrator. I think I've made that point very, very clear. So again, the first thing that I would easily say to anybody who wants to get into tabletop is twofold. One, don't assume that you have to start with D&D. Assuming that is a very dangerous trap to fall into. And second, talk to your players. Get a feel for what kind of players they might be, and look around accordingly. Google is your friend.
And side note, find a system that actually works.
Yes. That's where Google is your friend. You can find out the opinions from others and get an idea of what system you might want to work with that fits your playstyle and won't be absolute shit.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Ryder. How you
I'm
doing?
I'm guessing the whole find one that works. That's a swipe at Ryder.
Could be.
Yes, I know. That was my
Hey,
fucking fault.
Bio, we don't blame you. That is not your fault. All right? It was a miscommunication on everyone's part. We still had fun, and look where we are now because of it. So trust me, not all that bad.
There's one I should note that one channel I will recommend looking through some of his videos is for anybody looking to DM is Be a Better Game Master. Because he's put out a fair bit of stuff when it comes to helping out on that matter. And given that we seem to be in this surge of a lot of people wanting to do TRPG streams. One thing that I will point out that I try and make a point of is make it so that the game is in one form or another still the focus. Because I've seen a lot of cases where the focus is way too much on the story and not on the game. And the problem is you end up with a lot of cases where people want to try and play, but because of the fact that the games and how die rolls work and the like, and are kind of glossed over, that aspect isn't as they end up wanting to try, but effectively have no real understanding of how things work. Because I've had a few cases of that where somebody wanted to try and contacted me because they had seen it on Critical Role, and I effectively had to reteach them how to play certain games because they had only known the basic aspects of die rolling, and that was it.
The whole idea is flexibility and adaptability.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes these more games than stories. If you want to tell a story, go write a damn book.
Shades, do you recall what I said a novelist is shorthand for?
A bad DM.
Yeah. Or if you prefer.
Hey!
No. The point is that if you want to write a story, go write a story. But if you're going to DM a game, you have to be a little more flexible.
Yes. In fact, be flexible is rules 10 and 11 for how to not die like an idiot in Warhammer 40,000. And of course, one of the other rules is always check the body.
Always loot the body.
No, not always loot the body. Always check the body. Sometimes you might have somebody playing possum.
Fair point. In other words, double tap.
And then I smash it with a hammer.
Wrong letter!
That said, one game that I'm considering using as a future mini, just to kind of show the difference because of the fact that the Genesis system that's used for the FFG Star Wars games is a kind of evolution and streamlining of the die system that you've seen in Warhammer 3rd Edition. As for Warhammer, I had said this last week, but there were a few threads that I intentionally left unresolved. I don't have any plans to use third edition with resolving those threads. I'm putting that kind of thing on hold because of the fact that we're supposed to be getting a fourth edition coming soon. And I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to use that or if I'm going to use the retro clone Zweihander. But Shades, if you recall, in the Discord, I listed a few possible threads that could be expanded upon in a future campaign, because there's a lot of lore when it comes to Warhammer.
Oh yeah, and not to mention in our campaign specifically that we did not resolve.
Yep.
Cats in Bloom for starters.
Yeah, that's one of the ones, and I was gonna kind of hint at this, but I couldn't find the right spot to put it in. The implication was that she decided to try and make her way eastward. To try and escape the Empire, and take a new identity someplace outside of it, whether it be probably not in the dwarf holds because of the fact that they'd see that she has the stink of mutation and kick her ass out, but possibly in one of the realms beyond that, or in one of the northern realms, or hell, even with the vampires, because yes, Warhammer Fantasy has vampires, and they are awesome. There's also the fact that I kind of hinted that there's a lot more Skaven in Averheim than just the Trinity that you guys had dealt with. Another possible thread is the fact that Anel, aka Edlenor, even though that name has been separated from him, he is still the half brother to Malekith the Accursed. And before anyone asks, no, there is no connection between Malekith in Warhammer and Malekith in Marvel. It's a coincidence because both of them came out relatively around the same time. But there's also the idea that Malekith could launch an invasion either towards Ulthuan or towards the Empire. And last but not least, and I did hint at this at the end, that dream sequence that I had brought up at the end of the campaign involving a three-eyed king. That was Archaon the Chosen, who is basically a Lord of Chaos Undivided, i.e., he has the blessing of all four Chaos Gods instead of just one.
Yeesh.
Oof.
When he showed up in the miniatures game, it was the start of an event called Storm of Chaos. The idea was that you would have this massive chaos invasion, and people who played at local game stores could send in their battle reports to a site that Games Workshop was running. The problem was Chaos kept getting their ass kicked at every turn. And the one army that got the most wins was the Orcs. So they had to do to resolve this in a story. And this is why people are always cringe whenever Games Workshop decides to advance the storyline, because they're not very good at it. They decided to have it that somehow, despite getting his ass kicked, Archaon managed to make it all the way to Altdorf and was in a pitched battle against Karl Franz, the Emperor. And just as he was about to launch the killing blow against the Emperor, who was unhorsed from his griffin and prone on the ground, all of a sudden, Grimgor Ironhide the war boss of an orc horde, decides to show up, kick him in the groin, yell at him, and leave.
Jesus Christ.
And if you listen close, you could hear the facepalm of every Warhammer player on the planet. It was one of those ridiculously bad moments.
Keeps kicking me in the dick.
Why? Why does it keep kicking me in the dick?
And the thing is, Archaon is supposed to be able to regenerate. So it makes even less sense.
Gotta pop his balls back out.
Also, just a little side thing. I popped over on Randomania to see how Maddie's doing. Lucky son of a bitch is working with Big John.
Fuck.
And for those who don't know, Big John is one of the more well-known commentators and speedrunners in the community. I mean, he's one of the more popular guys at GDQ. I haven't even had a chance to work with the son of a bitch yet, and Maddie's working with him right now for his first gig.
Is there some salt?
Yes, there is salt.
There is much salt to be had, my friend. Man, I am so freaking jealous right now. Maddie's gonna be hearing from me after he gets done.
Yep. By the way, hello, Supernova.
Hey, Nova, how you doing, buddy?
He's saying, so Chaos was much like Crisis.
Oh!
Ooh. I'm guessing this is the Black RX reference, but
yes.
I haven't seen enough of Black RX, so I can't comment on that.
Oh, I can. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Stopped at every turn, beaten by yeah. That's Crisis.
Yep.
In the case
in the deck.
Yeah, in the case of in this particular case, yeah. But geez, was Black RX really that bad?
Yes. Yes, it was.
Indeed.
It was pretty pathetic.
It made Mask Rider look good.
Let's not get crazy.
Right.
No. He's not wrong.
Yeah,
that's what we were saying. We now understand why Masked Rider sucks so much, because they had to work with Black RX.
There were like 10 or 20 different. Let's cross out X from that list. Let's not do anything that's going to get everybody fired. So I was going to say there were like 10 or 20 or so Rider series that they could have used instead of Black RX, but then I remembered, wait, X exists. Let's not do that.
Yeah. I don't think us here in America would have been able to handle Starfish Hitler or Aunt Capone.
Aunt Capone they could probably handle. It would be mocked horribly, but I think it could be handled.
Yeah, but
Starfish Hitler. No, I'm not defending that.
They're still defending Starfish Hitler.
Well, I still say we should have gotten the adaptation of Kamen Rider J.
Technically, they did use parts of J and Zeto for Masked Rider, if I recall.
Yeah. Although, and Zeto did get an English version, but
yeah, on the Sega CD.
Nobody talks about that. One, Sega CD, and two, dubbing was a quality dubbing was a suggestion at that time.
Yeah, that's
I have no dog in the fight when it comes to dub versus sub, but what I will argue until I am blue in the face is that bad dubs in the current year are infinitely better than bad dubs from 10 or 20 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I've commented on how bad some dub jobs were done in the 90s. Yeah, some of them are pretty bad.
I got my start with Animiego.
Have you ever seen the original dub of the anime movie X?
Yeah. In fact, everybody keeps bringing that up when I say that I like that X is one of my favorite series, and I said, I'm talking about the series done by Madhouse, not the movie.
Yeah. I had the misfortune of seeing that when they kept airing it on fucking Showtime all the fucking time.
And to be fair, even when I eventually saw it in Japanese, it still wasn't much better.
No.
Mostly because of the fact that I have a very simple rule. Unless you know exactly what you're doing, do not adapt to work while it's still in circulation. While it's still being produced. Especially don't do it if you're doing a movie. I did not cut Akira any slack in this regard, and I'm not cutting X any slack in this regard because to put things in perspective, the Watermaster that was in the movie, they had to make that specifically for the movie because of the fact that it wasn't revealed at that point that Yuto could use water. Whereas now granted, X was under indefinite hiatus, but at least when Madhouse did it, they did it properly. And as far as the adaptation thing, before anyone says it, Full Metal Alchemist is the exception, not the rule.
If anything, it's the exception that proves the rule. You want a better example of a TV series that had this problem? How about Hellsing?
Oh, God.
It's Hellsing. About half of the stuff I've seen from Studio Pierrot over the last 20 years.
Fuck that.
I mean, the original Hellsing TV, not Hellsing Ultimate, before anyone even tries.
I just refer to it as Gonzo Hellsing.
Ah.
Just to make things a little bit simpler.
I think we went off the rails.
Well, there's really not much for us to talk about here. We've pretty much covered everything that we want to talk about for this campaign, unless we want to.
Yeah. One thing I will field one question to you all.
Really have to say it.
If of the games that we've done so far as Monk Minis, what would you say is the one that you would like to try again? With the exception of Cthulhu Tech, because Cthulhu Tech is the one I'm not allowing for this question because of the fact that I'm not putting up with that die system again.
Actually, that wasn't even the one I was thinking of. If there's any that I'd love to do again, it's probably Anima.
Why Anima?
What?
I just remember we had a lot of fun with that.
Personally, I'd go L5R.
Well, why so?
I don't know. It's just something about the world itself that was interesting to me.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say that between the gameplay and the world that we had, the story potential, those two definitely seem to be the top two that I think we would want to go back for.
Yep.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I have been pondering about testing out the in development 5th edition. Since some people on the Roll20 forums have finally put out some material so that I could actually use an API setup, because L5R uses custom dice much like Warhammer, but it doesn't use the exact same setup. It's this weird hybrid of the old roll and keep system and the setup used in Warhammer.
You just gotta find it.
However, it doesn't use nearly as many different die types. The only problem is for some characters I would have to do a bit. I would either have to do a rebrand or a bit of improvising, like with your, because they haven't converted the Mirumoto school, for instance. But L5R I can definitely see, because that's one series that I've been a huge fan of for quite a while, even going even enough to put up with the second edition days, which we don't. Nobody likes talking about second edition because they tried to put things in perspective, and even I'm pretty sure that when I finish this, even you'll be able to see the problems with second edition. They tried to jump on the D20 bandwagon, but in order to avoid not pissing off their fan base, Alderach made the baffling decision to have the rule books contain information on both the roll and keep system that they had been using since day one, and the D20 system in the same books.
Oh, that's not confusing at all.
Yeah, never mind the fact. And I remember somebody said, they're both using roll high systems. What's the difference? To which I said, here's an easier fucking question. What isn't the difference? Because they have absolutely nothing in common. Aside from the only difference is that sometimes in D20 you might roll some 10-sided dice. That's it, and even that's a stretch. But Lady K, it sounded like you had one.
I think it was L5R. It's the one where I was playing a duelist.
Yeah, you and Shades were both playing duelists from two different schools, and did not duel in the same way because you were about the quick draw, whereas Shades was about the long and short sword. Which I do find it funny that that dual wielding is still one of those things that most RPGs can't get right. Whether it be tabletop or video game.
Warhammer at least got that right, although I think that was your house rule, wasn't it?
The whole second roll thing, but add one difficulty, that was me.
I figured it was a house rule.
Because I always gotta change things a bit. Mike, what would your pick be on that when it comes to that question?
Yeah, I kind of in between both with Anima and L5R, just because of the worlds they were both portraying.
Mm-hmm. And a bit of a plug for a future project, but I may as well mention because L5R has quite a bit of lore, and I'm not entirely sure how I feel about how fifth edition is taking place in a specific point in that timeline instead of doing what fourth edition did, where they divorced the meta narrative from the game, which I thought was a very smart move. Because fifth edition, from everything I've heard, is taking place during the clan war, which unfortunately means that one of the clans wasn't a major clan yet. Let's see. I'm trying to remember, because I think we had one member of the team who played who was playing Mantis. I think that was Maddie. I think Maddie was from the Mantis clan.
I believe so. Yes.
Because Shades was Dragon. Lady K was Crane. You were Lion.
Yep.
And one of the more reasonable lions because you weren't a Bushi. And Bio was Phoenix. And Mr. One Shot himself, the guest for the evening, JT Vega, was from my favorite clan, the Scorpions. And for what it's worth, the reason why the Scorpions are my favorite is not because they're the clan to get your ninja fix. And if anything, if you called them ninjas, they'd probably shank you on principle. Because, well, that's Ninja is kind of a dirty word. They will, the Shoshiro family of the Scorpions will insist that they're shinobi, because the group that would eventually become ninjas kind of betrayed the Empire, and they were former Scorpion, which does not exactly help matters. But I'm currently resisting urge to make Yu-Gi-Oh jokes. I'm not sure which joke he'd go with, because there haven't been any traps.
Who knows?
Yep.
Well, before we wrap things up, are we going to get any hints as to what's coming in the future here for our streams?
Okay. Now, as I mentioned, I want to do, coming off of a long ass campaign like we had, because trying to think, was that the longest full campaign that we've done, or was one of the other ones larger?
It was probably up there. If it's not the longest, it's up there with probably Numenera.
Actually, I think it might be, because I think Numenera only was about 22 episodes.
Numenera was about 23 episodes. This was the longest running.
Yeah,
Actually, no, because this was 23 episodes too.
Oh, so we've got it. So we've got a tie.
Yeah.
And the Amazon or Decade equivalent that so far has been Rider.
But that was also when we were cutting our teeth in this, so it had to be a little shorter.
Well, I had specifically written only 20 episodes when it came to Rider. And also, as a bit of an aside, I can't help but have a bit of a laugh to myself when I look at how places like Hyper RPG set their things up, where they have a completely separate writer, whereas I'm doing 90% of the shit all by myself. So it's just one of those things to kind of pad my ego a bit.
To be fair, I think it works better that way, because you have a better understanding of what's written since you wrote it yourself, whereas Malika has to try to figure out where they're going with it by using someone else's imagination there.
Well, that, and I don't have any company to answer to.
True.
But given that, there are 3 minis that I am pondering doing, and given what's going to be coming, I'm saying this in advance, Lady K. I apologize, but much like the theater incident, there was nothing I could do unless I rewrote the entire thing. And let's see, you checked it. Supernova said Numenera was 20 episodes. This was 23. Okay, I take that back. I get at the rate we're going. I have to wonder if we end up doing something that ends up being a full anime season, i.e., 26 episodes. But here's what But because of what might be coming in the future, I am going to apologize in advance, because there's going to be some things that you might not be entirely fond of, and considering what might be coming, I'm not going to spoil that part, but I'm probably going to get.
Well, he's not saying it's spiders, but it's spiders.
You said it, not me.
It's spiders.
Moving on.
Minute you said the theater.
Yep.
I knew.
I will simply say that, one, I am not this is one of those cases where I am not doing it simply to fuck with you. I have other means of doing that. It was a case of, if I either do it as it is, or I have to redo the entire thing. So it was a lose-lose situation for me. Now that's it. That said, like I said, there are 3 minis that I'm considering, and possibly one micro campaign. But I want to know what you all think of it. Now, the first mini, which we will be doing next week, and I've been prepping this for quite a while, and I've been wanting to do this for quite some time. We're doing our first German RPG. That is De Genesis, which is technically a post-apocalypse, but its stylings is less Fallout and more Mutant Chronicles or Stalker, even though Stalker is not a post-apocalyptic thing. Because the thing is, even though there is the apocalypse thing, it wasn't by nuclear means. It was by mutations created by a new subspecies of mankind, essentially Morlocks. Which is why I bring up Mutant Chronicles. I've hinted at this a couple times with that trailer that I posted in the Discord, but this will be a good introduction to that particular world. And much like with L5R, there is a decent amount of lore. After that is going to be a one shot called Osaka Street Stories, which is based on the Legend system. Legend is a redux of 3rd edition's rules that was created by a few crazy people on the on the Giant in the Playground forums as part of a contest, and then they decided, you know what, why don't we just make our own game off of what we made? And so they did. And Osaka Street Stories is going to be a mix of neo-noir and Japanese folklore. And the final one, and I was trying to see if I could find a way to convert this, but I couldn't figure out how to my usual standards. Is going to be a one shot using the FFG Star Wars rules. Probably Age of Rebellion, because plenty of people have already done Age of the Empire, and I'm not doing Force and Destiny because I can think of at least one person in our group who would try and say, I want to be Jedi.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why I outright banned any Doctor Who RPG. An RPG based on Unit or Torchwood, I'm willing to go with that. Now, and those are the 3. Now, in addition to that, there is one micro campaign that I've considered doing. One of them is a micro campaign for Legend of the Five Rings called Second City, which takes place around one of the major cities in the Empire, Toshi Ranbo, which is basically taking L5R into an urban campaign. It would be more skill based and not as much combat focus. But I think you guys have learned that if you don't approach combat carefully in L5R, you are going to get fucked. Like that is one thing that L5R is infamous for, is its lethality. The other micro campaign I've considered doing is known as the Harlock trilogy from Dark Heresy, which uses Warhammer 40,000's set. Which between those two, which do you think would be more appealing?
Ugh. See, once again, when you run into the problem of us not really knowing for sure, because we don't play TRPGs as much as you do, so to us, it really doesn't matter. Whatever you think is going to be the most fun for us, go for it.
All right, but once that is done, and this is the crown jewel, the Lex Luger, if you will. Okay, Da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. The what I've been working on, and this has been a very, very ambitious little project, is I have one campaign that I have had in the back burner for quite a while that I've wanted to work on, is a steampunk-esque RPG campaign called Zeitgeist: The Gears of Revolution.
I want to give that one a try.
And well, that's what we're going to be doing for the long term. The minis and the micro campaign are just kind of a build up to it. And yes, it is also a way to buy me some time because of the fact that what I'm doing is going to take a lot of work, because the core campaign that I have uses Pathfinder rules. However, Pathfinder is one of those RPGs that is overexposed. I already am doing Pathfinder related stuff on Fridays. I don't feel like double dipping. So instead, I decided I'm going to hunker down and do a total conversion from Pathfinder to one of my favorite D20 conversion games, Fantasy Craft. And this is proving to be a lot more tricky than one might think, because of the fact that Fantasy Craft outright attempts to fix several problems that D&D and Pathfinder have. The major one is the fact that, well, let's be honest. When you reach at a certain threshold, and Shades, I think you can agree with me on this, you are swimming in magic items. But you'll notice that I don't really do that. Even the closest I did with that kind of thing was Numenera, and that was kind of the gimmick. How many magic items did I think everybody only had maybe one or two magic items at most. And Shades, you didn't even need one. You just had some masterwork handguns. But I think we only had, I'd say, 3 people who had magic items during the Warhammer campaign.
Pretty much.
I had my
four actually.
Yeah, I had my elfin runes enhanced sword.
Mm-hmm. Maddie had a Kavala hammer. Lady K had her staff, which was technically a halberd, but because of how the game ended up working, you weren't given an opportunity to go full Gish, which I do regret. Because spears did not get as much attention in that game. I think actually, Bio, I think you ended up getting a rune shield and a rune hammer, didn't you?
In Warhammer, yeah.
Yeah. But that was about it. 1 or 2 each. Because my philosophy is treating a magic item as if you had just gotten the Master Sword or gotten Sting. Not the wrestler, the sword.
Of course, we figured.
Yep.
Yeah, it should be a rare and treasured treat, not something you stockpile.
And more importantly, I don't think a magic item should just be a numerical modifier to an attack.
Ugh, no, God, no.
But D&D has had magic items kind of baked into its mechanics since the old Red Box days, honestly. And Fantasy Craft isn't doing that. And also, unlike D&D 3rd, you can play a pure fighter in Fantasy Craft and not suck. But yeah, this because of the quirks that both games have, it is proving to be a more daunting situation than I had initially thought. Not impossible, but it is going to take some effort. Which it's kind of what I do.
But hey, you know what? That still gives us an idea of what's to come here. So hopefully you guys at home get something to look forward to. Rest assured, the TRPGs are far from done. We're going to continue enjoying these. But I think that's going to do it for us here. It's been a couple of hours. We got some fun ahead of us here. I think it's time for the wrap-up. Don't you agree?
Yeah. Let's do this.
But indeed, thank you guys for joining us for this special edition of The Enemy Within for our Q&A special. This will be the very last episode under that title. Once we get our Monks Minis out of the way, we'll have a brand new series underway. Let's talk about what's happening the rest of this week here on RVTV. If my stream would load, there we go. Tomorrow night, Ranger Recap returns full-time. The new season of Super Ninja Steel has started, so we'll be checking that out here. Join us for that tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern. Friday, it's the WrestleCast. Join Matty J along with TWK as they talk about the wrestling news of the week. And, of course, your emails and comments as well. So join them for all that excitement Friday at 10. Saturday, we got a double whammy for you. It's the Helmsman with Tony Helms and the gang. And, of course, fan choice night on the Rising Sun podcast happening at 8 p.m. Sunday, Toku Live. Join me and Maddie along with Easy Rider and Spade Ace as we check out the latest episodes of Build, Q Ranger, Gavon, and Hurricaneger as we prep up for the finale-thon of Hurricaneger. Good God help us all. Join us for that, along with your Toku Meme Sunday at 7. Monday, it's the Shades Plays. Join me over on my channel as we continue our playthrough of The Illusion of Gaia. We've made our way to the city of Angkor Wat, and I know we didn't get to finish it on Monday because I got called in for an emergency commentary, but we will continue that next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Tuesday, it's the Rift Down with TWK and the crew checking out the latest SmackDown and providing their randomness like they always do, so be sure to join them Tuesday at 8. And then, of course, next Wednesday, join us for the first of our Monk Minis in the build-up to our new campaign. We'll see what Mildred's got in store for us here with D-Genesis, and we'll see what excitement we have for you on that. So, tabletop RPG action happening next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, live, right here on RVTV. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you head over and follow us on our Twitch channel so you can keep up with all the live streams. And, of course, if you can afford to, subscribe to get access to our exclusive Twitch emotes and access to our VIP Discord channels. In the meantime, I want to thank you guys for joining us as always. On behalf of Mildred the Monk.
My name is Mildred. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty and fuck Matt Ward. And to get one last one in.
Of course. Lady K.
I'm Lady K, and I'll catch you up on the plus side. Rock on, y'all.
Biohybrid.
I was trying to do crazy diamonds.
You sound more tired every time you say that, dude.
Sorry, not all here.
That would imply you were always all here to begin with. Anyway, Mike Shell.
Oh, wait.
This is Mike Shell reminding you to who leave in Fez mode. And also on behalf of Matty J, who reminds you to help professional wrestling, support your local independent promotion as soon as possible.
Damn, beat me to it. I was going to do that. But indeed, yes. And, of course, I'm the Shades, and we'll see you guys next time. Rock on! Special thanks to Eric Vaughn for your criminal donations. You can keep these going.